Hi, I'm Jen McIntyre, and today I want to talk about a really simple but powerful tool for scheduling called loops. I'm going to go over so many resources and so many details today. There is a ton that I'm going to cover. I know it's going to be long, but stick with me because these resources can be really useful for you, and it can also show you how you can build your own loops. One of the real challenges of homeschooling is how many options we have, especially today when there are so many things online and so many curriculums out there. We just have so many things that we can do. And the challenge that comes with this is that we feel like we're failing a lot of the times because there are so many great things, and if I was really awesome, I would be doing them, but we're not, so I must be failing. There are a lot of different ways to address this. Knowing what you want to accomplish is probably the best thing to address it. But today I want to talk about something that lets you get little bite-sized pieces of those awesome parts of homeschooling you want to do, and it really adds the spice to homeschooling, but you don't want to spend a ton of time on them, and so it's really hard to fit them in your schedule because where do you put something you want to hit once a month? And that can just become really hard to hold on to it in your head. So this tool is called loops, and a lot of people have talked about loops, but it's a really simple tool. It's a list of different subjects that you want to cover that you're not going to cover very frequently. Things on my list are composer study or poetry. You probably cover poetry more often than I do. I don't cover it very often. Or artist study. These are things that I recognize they're important. I want to do them. I'm not going to do them every day. I'm not even going to do them every week. And so I make a list of all of these different subjects that are, about that level of importance. And then you just work your way down the list. You say, it's Monday, I'm going to start at the top of the list. And then Tuesday comes, something happens, and you don't get to the list that day. That's fine. When you get to Wednesday, you're just working on the next one on the list. And you just work your way down the list. You never skip one. You just get to it when you get to it. And you know that you're going to continue working your way through there and not feel guilty about getting off a little bit because it doesn't throw your schedule at all. A loop you just keep plugging the way down the list till you get to the bottom, then you start over the top, and it's really pretty simple. So there are 3 steps to creating a loop, and then I'm going to show you how one of my loops, the details of the loop. So the first step to creating a loop is you just want to make that list. Gather up all of those different subjects that you think, oh, we should really be doing nature study, or I really want to be spending time on, brick making or underwater basket weaving or whatever you think is kind of cool, but we really don't have to get to it very often. Make a list of all of those subjects. So making this list of subjects can be an exercise in creativity, trying to find all the things you want to cover. But once you have it, it's locked in. This is what you're going to do. There's not a lot of, this is the framework. This is the stuff that stays and provides you with that sense of stability. We're going to keep getting to each of these subjects. Inside each one of those subjects, this is where we have agency. This is where we have a lot of freedom of what we want to do. And this is really the special sauce when it comes to loops, because it's great to have a list of things that you do, that you work down. But if that's all you're doing, and say that you get to math fun and you look at your schedule like, oh, good, today we're doing math fun, and you have to come up with something about math that's fun, you're going to hate it. It's not going to be fun. It might not even be math, and you won't have anything to do with it. You just want to be done and screw this loop thing. It's no fun at all. So having this secondary list is super duper important. For each subject on your list, you need to have a couple of items that you can just choose and say, oh, I want to do artist study. Oh, look, here's a website that I can go learn about artists from, or here's a book that I can read about artists from, and you can just choose. When you get to that day and you're doing artist study, you can look at it and say, I really feel like watching a movie because I'm tired, or that just seems like the best way to learn today, or I just am super excited to read a story about them, or let's go try a different way that they do art. Whatever, when you get there, you have the freedom to choose what you want to do for that subject that day. And you have it written down. You have all of your resources written down and gathered up so that when it comes time to do that, you don't have to think about it. You don't have to prepare, but it's already fun because you've already created it. Don't be overwhelmed. It's not that bad. Once you get this all together, then your mornings start, you're able to pull this out and it's like you're amazing every day and you just put a little bit of effort in at the beginning of the school year. So the third step is you have to keep track of where you are on the loop, because days blend and you start feeling like, didn't we just do word fun? I'm pretty sure we just studied words, but it was actually a long time ago. So it's super important that you have a way to keep track of where you are inside your loop. Otherwise, you won't be looping, you'll just be wandering around hitting them sporadically again. So what I do is I actually have on my day timer, I will write at the top of the day what we did that day for the loop. Now, I will tell you this. I thought that I'd be super organized one time, and so I wrote out what we were going to do like all week. These are the loops that we'll cover these days. And it took like 2 days before I was off, and it completely defeats the purpose of loops. Loops are reactive. Loops are something that you do and record after the fact. You cannot say, I'm going to do this for these next couple of days, because the point of loops is to allow you to get off schedule a little bit and be okay. So don't plan in the future. Just know that you're working your way down the loop and then record it somehow. Move a marker on your, if you have it up on a magnet board, move your marker as you go down, or write it down in your day timer or whatever. But keep track of where you are on the loop so that you just keep working through it and working through it. Okay, those are the 3 steps to creating a loop, and you can do it with anything. I actually have 3 loops that we use in our family, because to begin with, I don't know why this was so hard for me, but I put everything on one loop. I thought I was only allowed to have one loop. And so we were getting to science as often as we were getting to composer study. And I thought, oh dear, this is not gonna work. And then I don't know, like lightning struck my brain and I realized you can have more than one loop. So I have one loop of things that we just don't need to get to very often, and another loop of things that we do need to hit fairly frequently. So the ones that we hit fairly frequently is my foundation loop, and I have on my morning routine, I go over the details of all the different resources I use in my morning routine and my foundation loop. So check out that video if you want to know about my foundation loop. Today I want to talk about my inspiration loop. And the inspiration loop for us is just everything that inspires. And it's also some things that I'm just not going to get to normally, that I know I'm not going to get to it, so I might as well just stick it on this list and we'll get to it in a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to go over the 9 items on my Inspire loop today and just show you the resources that I use for this loop. You don't have to own these resources. In fact, what I did was when I first decided to do this, I just wandered around my house and started grabbing things that I thought, oh, that will go with the subject that I was going to cover. And I just gathered them together, and I was really surprised how many things I already had. So you find what's in your house that works with your subjects on your loop, but I want to go over what I found for the different subjects that I cover. So first subject on my inspiration loop is geography. And I have several different resources that I use. I got this book, it's called Natural Wonders of the World. I have no idea where I got this book from. I have had it forever. I don't know where it came from, but it's really awesome and it works really well in the geography section. This is about icebergs. I don't even know how to say that word. The Mississippi Delta. It covers a lot of different aspects of the earth that are quite interesting. And so I do not cover this cover to cover. When it comes time to do geography, we hit this point on the loop. If we do choose to pick this book up, we are literally going to go through and say, wow, the Amazon, that's a really pretty picture. Let's learn about the Amazon. It's not something that I have to do a whole lot of. In fact, every one of these lasts only 15 to 20 minutes. It's short. I'm just trying to inspire. I'm not trying to cover everything there is to know about everything in this loop. But I do really like this book. It has mostly, I like the pictures. It's really pretty. So I use that for geography. We also use Prisoners of Geography, Our World Explained in 12 Simple Maps. This one is really pretty cool. And I should mention that I use Marlene Peterson's Libraries of Hope rotation. So she walks you through world history every single month, covers different areas of the world. So I don't have to sit and think, oh dear, we're doing geography. What part of the world are we studying? I already know what countries we will be studying. So I will turn to, if we're doing Canada, I'll turn to this page and we'll just read all these little stories, all the things that are going on in Canada that are interesting. We also have a DK book, which I am such a huge fan of DK books because again, the pictures are so great. This is Children Just Like Me, and This is important for me personally because I think it's super important to find connections today, that there's so much pulling us apart that I think geography is a great place to say, hey, we have a lot in common, way more than we have that is different. We have a lot of things that go the similar. And so in this one, where does Clara live? Clara, where do you live? She lives in Germany. Okay, so this is Clara, and she lives in Germany. If I was learning about Germany, we would turn to this page and just discover what Clara is like. What's it like to live in Germany in a 2-page thing? It's really quick, really brief overview, but it really helps the kids to realize that there's a lot of similarities with kids all over the place. Now, this is going to be different from Canada, and yet you're still going to find things that we have in common. It's a really useful way to get to know not just the landforms, but the people when it comes to geography, which is an important part of studying different parts of the world. And finally, we do Exploring Your World. And this is written by the National Geographic Society. And I really like this book, no shock, because of the pictures. And when it comes to geography, that is really helpful. You want to be able to see an iceberg, that's a great idea, but what does it look like? You say that only a little bit's above the water, but what does that look like? And so having these pictures is really important. That is a disgusting picture. And then, so this takes you all throughout the different parts of the world, the forests and the cities and the different aspects of, the ocean. You get to see a lot of different parts of the world. And this has to do with people as well as it has to do with the land formations. But geography, in my mind, is only interesting because of what the people do with it or near it, or that it caused them to change their behavior. So geography is awesome, but mostly because of what it does with the people. So this book does a great job combining those two ideas. And a website that I love online is called Seterra.com. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but it is Seterra.com. And you can do all sorts of quizzes and races is what my kids do, that they will try to answer all the questions about where are all the states in the United States, and you have to find them really quick before time's up, or where are all the different countries in Africa, and you'll got to find them. So it's a game, but it's a really great way to figure out where different parts of the world are and understand, the different countries and the different landforms and waterways and everything. So that's great for geography. You can do country coloring pages, especially if you have little kids. Just Google it, just looking for a picture of Africa or Tanzania or whatever you're doing, and print off that picture and have them color that. And so that is what I use for geography. Okay, the second thing on my Inspire loop is called artist study. When it comes to artists, the best thing that I can think of is actually just do the art. But there's also some foundational stuff there. You want to know who some of the artists are. This book is found on Libraries of Hope. It is in the Great Lives series, and it happens to be stories of the great artists. If you're familiar with the system, it's a G2, but you can find this online for free as well. And you can look through this and just read one chapter or whatever, however much you want to read about it, and it tells the stories of different artists. But when it comes to art, I like spending a lot more time talking about art rather than just the artists. And so I try to find as much art as possible. On the Libraries of Hope website, you go to Fine Art. There's actually a menu, and you can choose Simple Joy. And in there's so many options for choosing different beautiful pictures, and you can incorporate that into your day. Say, okay, so today it's time to do artist study. We're just going to open this website and we're going to look through these pictures and sort of talk through them and say, what a pretty, dress, what a gorgeous place by the seaside. How would it feel to live so close to the ocean? What are some great parts of that and some not great parts of that? And just discuss the painting itself. Another place that I get a lot of my art is in the My Book of Delight series. This is also a Libraries of Hope book. Obviously, you can buy it, or you can also get it online for free at librariesofhope.com. And inside this has just tons and tons of art. And we'll do the same thing with this art, only I will have the kids sit on my lap or sit around me, and we will sit down and talk through this art and say, what are the people doing? Can you imagine you're one of these kids? Which one would you like to be? What are they doing? What would you be doing if you were in this picture? And really get to experience the art, not just the techniques of art, but also the feelings that art evokes. And these guys are obviously dancing, and there's a lot of action going on in that. And so you can really put yourself in the place of what's going on in these pictures and become one with the people, again, because you're dealing with other people, and that's really important. So that's for art. The other thing we do for art is YouTube art. There are several different channels on YouTube that we'll just look up and say art for kids, and sometimes we will do nature. You know, we've drawn a lot of different things. I've also done Pokemon with the kids. Those are super simple because they're really bold, easy lines. We've done a lot of Star Wars because they're also kind of bold lines that are pretty easy to see where they go. But whatever we draw, it can be a lot of fun to actually get in there and work on it ourselves. And so we'll do that when we get to artist study. That one sometimes takes longer than 15 minutes. Almost always it does, but it's a lot of fun. The next one on my list is Word Fun. Word Fun is my version of language arts. I just like word fun. I just like playing with words, and I enjoy reading. And so one of the things we do is we just do word searches. That's just a way to find them, get used to looking for words, get used to recognizing words, and it's just a fun game. Another thing that we do almost all the time, it's terrible, but it's a lot of fun, is Mad Libs. It's an app, and you can just stick it on your device, and we play it because the kids have to think in terms of what's an adjective. And I won't ever tell them. I'll say, well, what is an adjective? And they have to say, oh, that's right, it describes a noun. What's a noun? How can I describe a noun? And they come up with it on their own, so they become really good at the different parts of speech just by playing the game Mad Libs. And they love that. The other thing that you can do is idioms. I have this book, Cultural Literacy. This book I got for my older kids. We use it for their gap year. So once they've really finished high school stuff when they're 16 or 17 and they're maybe ready to start college, but they're missing some information in their heads, we will use this to kind of fill in all of those gaps. One of the sections of this book is idioms. And so idioms are phrases that you probably don't even recognize are unique to your area or to your family even, but there's something that we hear. So it would be something like, you're between a rock and a hard place, or just bite the bullet, or a baker's dozen, which is 13, or somebody who's all thumbs, because they mess with things, and they're clumsy. It's somebody's Achilles heel. And so we use these phrases a lot, and we just kind of use them in our vernacular, and we don't really stop and think, that's weird. If I didn't define that, I wouldn't know what that is. But little kids, they don't know what they are. And so it's a lot of fun to just open this book and go through jumping down somebody's throat, keeping your fingers crossed, having kosher food, knowing the ropes. These are all different types of idioms, and it's fun for the kids to just open it up and say, that is a weird phrase, what does it mean? And then they can sort of start incorporating it into their language too. So idioms is a great way to do word fun. The last one we do for word fun is word origins. Word origins are etymology is what it's called, and the best place to find the word origins I'm going to spell it for you, etymonline.com. You can go there to find the etymology of words and to just discover, where did that word come from? What is the life cycle of that word? Where did it originate from, and how has it changed over time, so that we can start making sense of some of the words that we use. And we do it quite often, and so we don't really know where our words come from. So studying the etymology can be fun. That is fun for certain kids. Certain kids don't love doing that, and so we just do it with the ones who like doing it. Moving on, that's word fun. Next, composer study. Composer study, I really don't use a ton of different resources for composer study. We use this book, The Spiritual Lives of the Great Composers, by Patrick Kavanagh. And I love this book because it has these quick stories, not super quick, but you can probably do them in 15 to 20 minutes, about all the different composers, and it is definitely with a Christian bent. It's trying to show that these guys not only made music, but they did it to praise God. And they're telling the story, and not all of them started out Christian. Quite a few composers weren't Christian and became Christian, or they were and they left and then they came back. So it's just really telling the story not just of their music, but of how their lives reflected God. and how they used their gifts and their talents to really bring glory to God. And because I'm Christian and I want to help my kids not only discover their own creativity, but do it for the purpose of glorifying God, I love this book. It's really helpful to help them understand this is a gift that God has given you or has given to other people. And as we use it to become better people, it helps us and it helps everybody around us. So this is really great for that. Very similar to that is another from the Great Lives series in the Libraries of Hope series, if you're familiar with it, G8. So it covers a lot of different composers and it tells their stories. This one is less focused on their lives as a reflection of God and more focused on where did they come from, what did they do with their lives, where did they move to, who was their teacher, what happened to Beethoven's hearing. So it covers the story of their lives more. Not really secular, but more of that foundational stuff. So that is it that I use for composer study, besides just listening to music. And because we use the rotation with the Libraries of Hope, if we happen to be in a specific country, we'll listen to music that has been composed by people from that country. Sometimes, and sometimes we don't. Sometimes we just really want to listen to Vivaldi, and so we listen to Vivaldi. But you can also line it up so that you can be sure that you're going to be getting a good broad spectrum of different composers from all over the world, because there are beautiful composers from everywhere, from African music to Chinese music to, Kentucky, everywhere. There are lots and lots of beautiful songs out there, lots to really appreciate. The next one on my list is one of my favorite, and that is character study. This is really important to me. I really want my kids to have a good character, but I don't want to hit them over the head with it because then they'll feel like they've just been hit over the head with it. And I don't want to approach it that way. So I try to have a more gentle but consistent approach. And so this is done by just reading stories of people with great character. My favorite book for this is called Storytime. And we actually bought it a long time ago, and my kids loved it so much, and then we moved across the country, and it got lost in the move, and they were shattered. They were so upset to have lost this, so I had to go online and find it again. I love this because they're fun stories. This is the story of an elephant who got into a stable and wouldn't come out of the stable, and so it really brings the kids in, and it tells a story in such a way that is exciting and fun. And you can see, I don't know if you can see, but right here, it says this is teaching the value of resourcefulness. And so, if you really wanted to hit them over the head with it, you could say, hey, the lesson we just learned is about resourcefulness. But you can just read in the story and let them see, hey, wow, that's a pretty creative way to solve that problem. And it is so filled with different stories that I absolutely love these. You do feel enlightened, you do feel uplifted, you do feel happy to know that there are good people living the way that people in these stories live. So I highly, highly recommend this book. I would buy it. I have bought it twice. I would buy it again if we lost it. It's a really great book. The other book that I have that teaches values is cleverly named Stories That Teach Values. This is another Libraries of Hope book. This happens to be in a different series. This is the Story Hour series, S11. And the point is just gathered around a bunch of stories that actually teach values. And so if my goal in this particular part of the loop is just to teach a value, I'm going to read a little story out of this. And it's nice because they're little. And you can just tell a story and then let the kids have it in their heads and let it work through their heads and into their hearts so they can figure out what kind of a person they can be. Because they're really going to be what they're exposed to. So primarily that means I have to be a good person. I'm around them all the time. I have to exemplify being a good person. But secondarily, what we read is what they're going to become. And so reading these value tales, it's really important because it really affects how they see the world and how they behave inside that world. So I love that book as well. And the last book that I use for character stories is just scripture stories. And you can get them from the Bible or from your core book, whatever your book of scripture is. Just tell the stories of the people in the scriptures because those are great, great character stories. And they're also stories you want them to have as far as cultural literacy, that people know these different stories of Noah and Moses, and you want them to be able to talk with other people and have some intelligent background to understand what is being discussed. But they're also great for character foundation. So that's the last place that I look for character stories. Okay, I just said that was my favorite, but actually this next one might be my real favorite. I don't know. I like all of them. They're all fun. This is called Math Fun. Now, we have math curriculum that the kids will use, and oh my goodness, we own every math curriculum that has ever been made because different kids learn different ways and at different ages, and so we change it up. That is not what this is. This is not working through concepts and making sure that you can do problems inside a math book. This is math fun. This is seeing where math interacts with the world, and it's beautiful and it's creative and it's fun. This is more like engineering math and less like computational math. So I have a couple of different books that I use for this. I don't know if you can find this anywhere. I hope to never lose it because I don't have any idea where I got it. So inside this are 1,000 different puzzles, all the different word puzzles and logic puzzles that the kids need to look through and think, how can I solve this puzzle? It's not hardback. Using just my mind and being able to creatively approach this problem. I love this book. I don't know if you can find it anywhere, but there are a lot of different books like this that are just logic puzzles and fun manipulative puzzles, whether it's with actual manipulatives or just with their brains. So this is a great one for math fun. This one, the other one that I love this book, you'll be shocked. It's because of the pictures. I love this book because a lot of the pictures are really engaging and it's got all these great math concepts in it. So it has the year that this math concept was discovered. It tells you what it is, the Harry Ball theorem. It has a gorgeous picture to grab your eyes so that you can say, hey, that's fascinating. I wonder what that's all about. And then it gives you a description of what this particular math idea is. And then it has at the bottom some other things that kind of connect to this idea. So it says, see also, Brouwer fixed point theorem in 1909. So if I were doing this one and I was still fascinated, I'd go back here to 1909 and find, wow, a lot happened that year, and find the Brouwer fixed point theorem. And I have no idea what this is, but then you can study this and figure out what that is. And this is the kind of math that's just fun. It's just fascinating. They've discovered it and they found it in the real world and they've discovered ways to use it that is just exciting and fun. And you don't have to do anything with this, but your kids can. They can do whatever experiments these guys are coming up with. They can draw things. They can create something based off of what they've seen in here. And it's just a really great way to say math is not just doing problems. It's actually really fun in the real world. This book, Mathemagic, is a Childcraft book, and I've seen actually several different covers for it. And I think several different years, and they have a slightly different stuff on the inside, but it's all just math fun for little kids. So it's a Childcraft book. It's called Mathemagic, and inside of it are puzzles and fun word problems and fun logic problems and the history of math in a lot of different ways. So they look at this and they want to know what this story is. They want to hear this because it looks like so much fun, and it is a lot of fun. So, and that's really the point of this part of the Inspire Loop. Math is fun. We're not going to be doing anything in this part that is hard or difficult. We're just showing how much fun math can be, because I know it can be hard. Learning all of the rules and how numbers interact with each other can be challenging. I don't want to lose sight of the fact that it's also lots and lots of fun, and this book is really helpful in that. When it comes to math, it's more than just even having fun or the computation. This book is part of a series. I don't think I own the other book in this series, but there are two of them. It's called Mathematicians Are People too, and it tells the story of great mathematicians, and scientists are in here as well. So it tells the story of Pascal and his life as a child, and then as he got older, and what happened to him, and why he's interested in math, and what he discovered in math, and what he brought to the math table, and all the things about him that are really cool. This is his story. It has to do with math because it's his story when it comes to the math part of his life, but it is really his story as a person, and so it can be quite fascinating to learn from a historical perspective as well of where were these people. Because math doesn't happen in a vacuum any more than anything else does. You want to know what is happening in society when they're making these discoveries. Why was discovering zero such a big deal? And what was happening around the world at that point that made discovering the zero be such a big deal and be something that they wanted to discover? And so these stories can really put it in perspective and say, math builds on itself, not just when you're a child and you learn addition, then you learn subtraction, but the actual discovery of math through history has built on itself. And you can really see that inside this, that we know so much today because so many people built on the last people's knowledge. And I love this book for that reason. It's a lot of fun. The last one is The Secrets of Mental Math. This has been really helpful for my older kids, mostly me, but it has been a lot of fun to look at math and say, I can do math in my head, computations in my head that I couldn't do before, because one of the things that they taught in here is to do it from left to right. And I'd heard people say that, add left to right or subtract left to right. And I thought, that's crazy. How could you possibly do that? But then once I started figuring it out, I was like, that is so much easier. And so doing mental math, doing Secrets to Mental Math has really made math be much more, I can own it a lot easier. It's something that I can have in my life because it is so much easier when you know little tricks like going from left to right instead of right to left. So Secrets of Mental Math by Arthur Benjamin and Michael Shermer. And this is a lot of fun to have, especially for your older kids. The last resource that I use for math on my math loop is called Bedtime Math. And I'm pretty sure that there's a book that you can get, but I don't have the book. I just subscribed to their thing online, and you can just go to bedtimemath.com, and they have these emails that they will send you every day. And they will tell a little story, and sometimes they have a link to a movie. It's just a little clip of something that has some sort of math application in the real world. And it's always fun. And then they will ask some questions. And they'll say, for the little kids, let me ask you this really basic question. If there were 3 sheep, if the story is something about sheep, if there were 3 sheep and then one of them got its wool cut off, how many sheep were there or whatever? And it's a simple little thing. And then they'll ask for the middle kids, here's a middle-sized question. And then the big kids get a harder question. And my kids love doing math like that because it's not something that, is going to get graded or anything like that. It's just fun. It's just something that they can look into and say, wow, I'm really looking forward to that new idea of looking at math. So that is another great way to have math fun. Okay, I use 3 resources for poetry, and by far there's one that the kids prefer. But the first is My Book of Delights. And I've already referenced this when it came to art, but in addition to art, in this book, this is from Libraries of Hope. And you can see it online for free, or you can buy it. And inside you have all of the art, but you also have poems that you can read. There are also stories, so I'm zipping through the stories and trying to find a poem. This is a quick little poem, and there are other poems throughout the books. So this would have a poem that you could read to your kids really quickly. So this is one place to find poems and poetry. Another place that doesn't have any art, but has a lot more poems in it, is called Poetry for the Well-Educated Heart. I know that there's an organization to this, but we don't ever use the organization. When we get to poetry on our loop, we just pick up a book of poetry and we read to each other and we tell each other poetry, and we're not trying to make it match any sort of pattern. We just are reading poetry. So the kids are okay with this, they're okay with this, but by far what they love is poetry treat time. And so what we do for poetry treat time is I will just buy treats. For a long time, I tried to make them, and then I just discovered that was such a burden. It was making it so we never did it, and the kids were really disappointed. So I just put it on the grocery list. I just have to buy treats for poetry treat time. Done. So then when we get to this part of the Inspire loop, we will get the treats out and we'll lay them out so they're all gorgeous and everybody gets their drink. And then we have several books throughout the house that have poetry in them, and they're, Mother Goose all the way up through some more advanced poetry, Edgar Allan Poe. Whoever is pulling the poetry gets to decide how complicated they want it to be. And we just share poems with each other and eat treats, and the kids by far love that for poetry. So that's what we usually use for poetry. The next one on our list is science fun. Now again, just like math, this is not something that we're going through a text and trying to accomplish beginning to end. This is the fun part of science. This is the exciting part. This is where it lands in the real world. And most of the stuff that I use for science fun is not a book. It's stuff that we look up online. The first thing is Mystery Doug. Mystery Doug, if you guys haven't tried Mystery Doug, you really should. And let me pronounce it a little bit more carefully, Mystery Doug. And he has all these videos that are all about discovery. And what he has is the kids will ask a question and they say, hey, I want to know this about the world. This is kind of fascinating. Why does this happen? And so then he will create an answer for it and a way of discovering the answer for themselves, for the kids. And then they have experiments that they do, and they're really easy, and they're also very approachable for the kids. They really enjoy doing it. So we love Mystery Doug. When it's time for science fun, often they will choose to go do one of his. Another thing that we use is Mark Rober. His videos. Mark Rober has to be one of my favorite YouTube people because he is hilarious and he's also such a creator. He likes to take things, ideas that he has in his head, and turn them into reality. He was a NASA scientist and helped put the rover on Mars. And so he loves creating things, and then he's no longer working at NASA, but he still uses those same tools to create all sorts of different videos that are lots and lots of fun. Everything from an egg drop to he has this huge squirrel defying system where he sets up an obstacle course in his backyard for the squirrels to go through to get to the nuts. So lots of fun different things that he uses science and math and engineering for, and we watch it and we love it, and it's just inspiring to say this is what science can become for you. This is something that you can use science in the real world and have so much fun with it. So we love watching Mark Rober. Another one that we love watching on YouTube is What's Inside. This is a dad and at least one boy. I'm not sure how many boys he has that helps him with this. They will take crazy things like a wasp's nest and just cut it open and say, what's inside of this? I want to know what is going on inside of this. And so it's lots of fun to see what makes things tick, and when you start opening them up, what is going on inside of them. So that's a great YouTube channel for that. And then Khan Academy has a crash course of science. And I will tell you straight up, sometimes he is crass, and I wish he wasn't, because the things that he has on there are so great. And then every now and then he'll say something and I'm like, okay, I guess we have to discuss that. But what he brings to it is a lot of information really fast. So if you're looking for an overview of different body systems or an overview of different science topics, he's got a lot of really fast videos to just take you beginning to end. I would not use his crash course for an actual curriculum. If you're trying to figure out the endocrine system, I would not use crash course. It's just too fast. It's really good to review once you already know this stuff, or it's really good to give you a quick overview so that you think, okay, I've heard that word endocrine before and it had something to do with hormones. And then you can really get into it and figure it out on your own. So we use this as a science fun, but not as a science thing, because as a curriculum, because he really, yeah, for all the reasons I've said, I don't use it for curriculum, but it can be really fun to expose you to these ideas. Thornton Burgess writes a lot of stories about different animals, bears and rabbits and raccoons, and each one has their own little book, and they can be a little hard to get a hold of online. My library has them, so I just go rent them. But these stories are really wonderful that you can get to know the animals as personalities. So they're talking and they're interacting with each other in English. So in that way, they're not animals, but they are acting like animals in where they live and what they do with their day. So it really helps kids to feel like they have inroads into what does an animal do? What's a raccoon like? Where does it live? Why does it feel that way? Does it hibernate? All those kind of things. Those Thornton Burgess stories are really wonderful for that. And I'm pretty sure you can buy them, but like I say, I have them at the library, so I'm not looking to buy them. Have I mentioned I have a lot of boys? We do disgusting science. Let's show you. This comes in a big book, a big box, and I think there are 20, maybe 25 books in here. I don't know. But it's called Horrible Science. Did I call it disgusting science before? I don't know. Anyway, it is a lot of fun because it really just doesn't mess around with being clean, and it gets right into all the yucky, messy parts of science that boys think are so cool. And so they can read in this, and it has little pictures, and it's fun, and it's a quick way to learn this stuff. And it's written for I'd say 10 or 11 and a little bit older than that. That's about the age range that you want to use these books for. Not a curriculum, not something that will walk you through in a systematic way to make sure you're covering all the science, but so fun. When it comes time to just say, what is out there that I haven't considered about the world? These books are wonderful. So let me just read you a couple. This is The Fight for Flight. So this is all about flying. Microscopic Monsters. Space, Stars, and Slimy Aliens, because I would put those three things together. The Terrible Truth About Time. Chemical Chaos. You can see how just absolutely nasty. Like, why would you pick that picture? Because you're writing it for boys. Or just young kids. I don't know, girls might like it too. I just don't have girls. Bulging Brains. And this is just a couple of them. All of them are like that. They're very disgusting, they're very horrible, but they're also a lot of fun, and the kids love getting into it and love reading all about the different aspects of science that can be a lot of fun. So that's why we stick that in Science Fun and not necessarily in Science the curriculum. So we'll do science separate from this, but this is just Science Fun. Okay, the last subject on my list is gardening, and can I just say, good job for sticking it out this long. This has been a really long video. I have one resource for gardening because guess who does not have a green thumb? But this is really fun. It's called A Kid's Herb Book for Children of All Ages, and it's by Leslie Tierra. This book is a wonderful resource for learning all about the different types of herbs and the different types of plants and where you need to plant them and how long it takes to grow and what you can use them for. So this is a great breakout book for kids. I'm not gonna lie, I have not spent very much time in this book. I don't know a ton that's in there because, again, gardening is not really my shtick, but I feel like I should at least address it because I've got several kids who love nature. I'm super grateful to have that resource so that we can go over gardening a little bit. And the other thing we do is we actually live in a really green place because it rains so much. So the kids have plants, they just keep outside and they grow without any real effort. And so every now and then we'll go out and be like, hey, look, we're still growing. Look at us garden, we're so cool. And so that's what we do for gardening. That is it for the loop. That's all the different resources. I just want to reiterate really quickly, all of those resources, you do not have to do all of them. You do not have to do any of them. You can do the same one every single time you get to that particular subject, or you can mix it up and do several that day, or you can just decide, hey, we never use this, let's take it off the resource list. That part is entirely up to you. That is you've got the list of subjects that you're plowing through, that's your structure, and then you have all your resources. That's your choice. That's what works for you in any given moment. Use what you want and don't worry about the rest. Just really let that be your own personal development of that loop, of that list. If you subscribe to my channel or like it or comment, it really helps with the YouTube algorithms and I really appreciate it. And it helps you to see the videos that I put out. Thank you so much. I'll see you on the next one.